So what's next? More improbability? Or will we just suddenly puff into bunnies?
I think I'm a sofa.
I know how you feel.
So much for the laws of physics.
Strange New Worlds. Episode review.
I would like the review to go now. Well, friends, we're back at it once again. We're talking Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 9, the penultimate episode of the season. The musical everyone's been waiting for, or dreading, or wherever you come down on that. We are at Subspace Rhapsody. If you don't like spoilers, consider this your final warning because there will be some ahead, although I'm not entirely sure how much I can spoil about a musical episode, but this is your final warning. Now we're cracking on with the show. So I'm going to have to say this right off the bat. I'm going to annoy both sides of the fence on this one because I didn't think it was the most spectacular thing ever, and I didn't utterly hate it with a burning passion. I thought mostly that this was a fine, enjoyable episode, although I would have preferred, in my opinion, a little less of the explanation. I do appreciate the fact that they went out of their way to come up with a sci-fi-esque sounding explanation, even though it was incredibly unscientific and basically quasi-fantastical, but I did appreciate the fact that they put in a little effort there. I just found it to be a little bit too much effort. They didn't need to go to all of these extravagant lengths to give us the reason for this happening. I would have been okay with just a few lines of dialogue or, something that made even less sense but was a little more in keeping with the universe. Obviously, I'm probably overthinking this, but I just think they could have spent less time on the old quantum intersectionality of different realms and a musical reality coming into ours and blah, 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 all that stuff, and actually focused more on the emotional and story beats that they were clearly trying to tell with this whole musical episode. And I do want to reiterate my point that I made before when I first found this was going to be a musical. I didn't necessarily come down hating it. I thought it could be a fun thing to do. I just questioned the validity of having it as one of the 10 episodes of the season. And I still kind of feel that way. Coming off of episode 8, which was this dark, introspective look at war and some of our characters, and then jump right into this episode off the back of another kind of goofy crossover episode. The tonal consistency of this season is all over the place. I feel like this would have been served better had it been an actual hour-and-a-half special that came out outside of the season. Maybe you have the 10 episodes and then they give us a Strange New Worlds musical evening or something that they drop on Paramount on some weekend after the show has ended. I know that's not necessarily probably in the cards. They didn't have the budget. They didn't have the actors. All of those things. There's logistical issues that probably prohibit that. But I just feel like this could have been served as a special engagement type of thing a bit better than just making it a musical episode. So all of those thoughts out of the way, the episode actually did have some pretty far-reaching implications as far as the character arcs for most of our characters. Now, M'Benga wasn't really touched on anymore, although there were some wink-wink, nudge-nudge things to the trauma and the events that occurred in last episode. So fingers crossed we're not done seeing that, because if we don't get any more further story based upon that, I will think that that episode was a bit more of a waste. But we also got more story with James T. Kirk here. And I have to say, after they jumped over hoops and went out of their way to explain the meeting between Kirk and Pike for the first time when Pike was a fleet captain a couple of episodes ago, to bring him in again right now and kind of undercut that one canon meeting between them, I'm fine with. I have no problems with them kind of changing that part of history, changing that part of canon because of all the other things they've already done in this show specifically. But to go out of their way to explain that meeting and then to just double down on throwing it out the window, it seemed a little odd. Why did they go out of their way to throw in that canon moment if they're just going to go ahead and have Kirk and Pike meet again 2 weeks later? So I feel like the only reason they brought James here is because they wanted him in the musical. I mean, there wasn't really any real world explanation for him to be here. The same with Captain Batel. They just wanted to get these kind of sub-main characters, these supporting characters in the vicinity so that they could sing along a little bit too. And of course, this episode 100% was meant to either overcome the emotional issues, the emotional baggage, or to introduce new emotional baggage for a lot of the relationships. And that was what this musical episode basically was. It was dealing with, apart from Mbenga apparently, and Pelia, because she's had nothing to do the entire season for the most part, it was bringing up those emotional issues. So we had the whole Pike Batel thing, we had Spock and Chapel, and now Spock and Corby, as we know, historically is going to occur in her future, the past from the original series. Then we have La'an and James T. Kirk and parallel James T. Kirk, and then we find out in this episode James T. Kirk and Carol Marcus is currently pregnant with David, another future event we know. So we get La'an finally telling the original Prime Strange New Worlds universe version of James T about her alternate shenanigans with his counterpart, which was nice catharsis up to a point when we realize that Kirk is currently in a relationship with Carol and things can't happen here. We know there wasn't going to be much there anyway, so I don't know. It just seems like a lot. And then we have Una dealing with the fact that she used to be this closed off, walled off, secret keeping person, but she's now come to realize that's not the best way because of the whole Illyrian coming into the light and now knowing her future being the poster child for Starfleet. So there's all of these little emotional nexes coming to fruition here, and we get some momentum. So it seems like after this episode, Spock and Chapel are done. Spock is going to now become the more emotionless, logical Spock we know from the original series, and this is all going to be because of his failed relationship with Nurse Chapel, and that's going to kind of in part be because of the time travel episode. So Boimler is potentially responsible for Spock becoming the version of Spock he is. This is a whole tangled web here. Why am I talking about the story elements when this was mostly just about the songs? This is where my two minds come in. Was this a successful Star Trek episode, and was this a successful musical? And I have to say, a successful Star Trek episode? Not really. I mean, the sci-fi Star Trek elements, very, very marginally present, and when they were, it was just kind of a bunch of nothing to get to the plot. So I never really anticipated this being a real hard sci-fi story. The fact that they put so much effort into that was unneeded in my opinion. But was this a successful musical? And I have to say, yes and no. I did enjoy it for the most part. I do think I enjoyed the La'an and the Uhura songs the best. And then, of course, we have that closing number, the end song, which I had this real out-of-body experience when the Klingons came on screen. I still have no idea how to feel about that. That was definitely an out-of-body, out-of-reality feeling that went through me right there. I didn't necessarily feel like I was even in the same realm of being anymore. I don't know what's happening. And that one didn't at all feel like it fit within this structure of altered reality they were trying to cook up with this subspace relay thing. The song from Spock was a little interesting as well. It didn't really fit the narrative whatsoever. So there's not too much to really discuss about this. I mean, I can't really break down the songs that logically. There was some nice stuff in the songs. There were some good character moments. The first couple of songs really hit me as a bit cringy before it finally got into the whole mix of things. And the choreography, which I felt was going to be the biggest issue, wasn't all that present. There was only a couple times where there was choreography, and I guess potentially that's one of the reasons they decided to go with this intersecting quantum reality, changing our own by intersecting with a reality that is musical based. I guess that's one way of explaining it without just having the songs, and I feel like they had to do it this way instead of having some sort of grand energy-based life forms changing reality or a dream or telepathic interconnection or something, because they really wanted the events of this episode to have weight and long-lasting implications for our characters. Like I said, a heck of a lot of relationships were either ended or explained or explored in this episode, and I can't imagine they really wanted to have this episode not have any meaning and not have impact. So this episode can't be distinct from the season like I was kind of hoping, because there are plot elements here that lead to that serialized characterization that we will need going forward, and especially the whole Pike Patel thing. I have a bad feeling that she is dying in the next episode. I know next episode is supposed to be about the Gorn. I haven't watched the trailer. I'm just going off the fact that it's named Hegemony, the Gorn Hegemony, and from the trailer we saw that shot of her on the planet. We get a little line here that she's being called away for a priority one emergency or something. So I don't have high hopes that she's making it out of this, and the Pike and Patel relationship is going to be left on this whole, when I come back we'll plan this grand vacation. I have to imagine that's going to leave us with a whole changed, different type of Pike in season 3, if the events are going to play out the way that I kind of think they're going to. Again, I have no foreknowledge of this. It's just an assumption based on what I've seen is coming up. I do just want to show this picture here because I paused while watching it on ParamountPlus.com, and for whatever reason, this tickled me as fantastic product placement. It couldn't have been a better time to pause it, so well done, Sonic. I guess you got your plug in. I don't know. I don't have that much more to say about the episode. There were some good emotional moments, but I feel like that happens in a musical. It's a lot easier to convey a nice range of emotions when you're singing about it than it is through just sheer dialogue. It's kind of like a shorthand or a little bit of a trick. Uhura seems to really be coming into her own now. She's dealt with her past trauma. She's dealt with Hemmer leaving. She is the one that connects the ship. Oh, that is a point I did want to bring up. A lot of the cheesy dialogue, the over-the-top cringy dialogue that was in that original trailer for season 2 seems to have come from this episode, which makes sense. A lot of that flowery over-the-top stuff was set within this musical episode. You need to take things within the context of what they are. We've seen a lot of that with Star Trek trailers recently, the Worf being a pacifist thing obviously standing out to me. So it's just nice to see that most of the trailer things did mislead us to a certain extent, which I think is a sign of a good trailer. You don't want them to actively give away what's going to happen. But overall, I think this episode was fine for what it was trying to do, but it didn't blow me away the way I was hoping it would, and maybe I'll feel differently on a rewatch. But as for a continuation of this season, aside from the plot points that need to be resolved or need to continue the season, I thought it was just kind of an average story, not too much to read into the actual sci-fi Star Trek point of the story. But what did you think? Were you a big fan of the musical numbers? Did you completely hate it? I know it seems like I'm riding both sides of the fence here, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was well done. It just didn't strike me as a fantastic musical like I was hoping it would. I was really hoping to be completely blown away by it and to have this, on repeat on my iPod or something. Do kids still use iPods these days? I don't know. Probably not. But anyways, leave all your thoughts down below. I don't have much more to say about this. I know there wasn't much meat in this actual video here, but that's what I have to say. So until next time...
There's Klingons on the starboard bow.